ろしくお願いします。Welcome to the live stream from Daishu-in West, Sunday, October 6th. Thank you for tuning in. It's another hot day in southern Humboldt. And no rain so far. Seems like it might be, the fall might get started a little late this year. Fortunately, we still have plenty of water, and there haven't been any fires nearby the temple this year at all. So we're in pretty good shape. People need to know their mistakes. I'm sure if you've watched a few of these, you've heard me say that because it comes up a lot. It's something that I heard from Ursula, and Ursula, said that it was something that Morinaga Soka Roshi would say. There's nothing much to be done except to know one's own mistakes. Everybody has to know their own mistakes. And we're not gaining anything by practice. We're just learning our mistakes and not making them anymore. And this is how our original nature is already completely revealed. It already is our so-called mistake. But in the seeing of the mistake, the stickiness of it, it's a mistake because we get caught up in it. And in the seeing of that, it naturally evaporates. I mentioned last week there was a Zen master who, whenever anybody inquired anything of him, he would just say, "Don't fantasize." And it's the same thing. It's just in this case we're just saying it a different way. That fantasizing is making a mistake. And stopping it is just seeing that it is a mistake. And then it naturally just sort of pops like a soap bubble or something. It just poof. Once the unreality of the thing is seen, there's no sticky quality anymore. Like what's to attach to? It's a phantasm. It's a fantasy. Don't fantasize, and once it's seen as a fantasy, there's no solidity there, there's no mass for us to grasp onto anymore. And that is seeing our mistakes, the seeing of that Dharma, and by Dharma I just mean thing that arises as unreal. Impermanent, or however we say it. And that's it. That's all practice. Right there is just seeing into the unreality, stopping to take the unreal for the real, in other words. But of course, we get caught up over and over and over again, and there are different ways in which this mistaken thinking stops. There are 10,000 different paths, there are different methods, for seeing these things, or at least there are different flavors. It may all fundamentally be the same thing, seeing the unreality of the Dharma, and then it ceases to be binding. And maybe all the 10,000 different paths, are just different flavors, different, it's the same thing, it's just kind of put a different way. And because of each of us are, in the material, manifest way, attuned differently. We appear differently. These different methods somehow click, and other ones don't. And so that's why, I'm me, and like this particular thing works for me, and you're you, and something else might work for you. Not everybody is a Zen monk. Not everybody is um, whatever, a shaman in northern Norway or whatever it is. We are all different. And the seeing may be different because the standpoints are different. But what is seen is the same. There is not two different understandings there. It is all fundamentally one solid block, one reality. And although it may manifest as me and my problems, and you and your problems, they aren't separate. They are already that one solid block. They partake. Partake is kind of a loaded word because it's not a separate thing that they share in. It's already that mistake is already enlightened activity. That which we call delusion is already itself purity and completeness. There is not something lacking there that is then gained, somewhere else. But in order to kind of get a handle on that, we have to stop playing the loops that we play over and over and over ourselves. Each of us partaking of individual nature, and that is partaking. That is, I think an accurate way to use that, because it is a manifest thing, and I indulge in differentness and separation. I partake of that, and other people have expressed similar tendencies to me. And then it becomes kind of a loop. We return to this idea of separation all the time, all throughout the day, playing over and over like these stories of I am this and I am that, and this person, that person. We have various ideas that we revisit consistently, and that kind of frame our perspective on life. And the fundamental one being our ideas about ourselves and who we are. And so naturally those are the most pernicious and difficult to eradicate. So we have to, in order to actually see what is, we need to get in there and stop playing the loops. We can't see anything while we're still sort of picking at that scab that we created through, arbitrarily creating a self. If we were just to see, what is, it's like cool water running over the wound, and the wound would naturally heal. But we do not. We keep picking at the scab of I am that, I am this, I am that. There are these things about me which are very important, and other people don't understand that about me, and blah blah blah, whatever it is, for each of us individually. And that picking at it, actually prevents that I am this person wound from healing. When we're just spontaneously in what is occurring, when we just hear the sounds and smell the smells and taste the tastes without any of that, then where is there any difficulty? There's no difficulty there. They are just spontaneous arisings. We would call that, knowing for oneself hot and cold. It's just, that's what the experience was. It happened. It didn't happen to anybody. There's no need to go into a whole mental explanation of it or put it in context of a separate being. That might happen too. But these are just things that happen. But then we, perhaps we fall into this separateness and we start telling ourselves stories about experience and what that means for us as this person or that person and blah blah blah. And pretty soon we're off in a whole trip about the thing. And if it's particularly significant, if it's a life-changing experience, sort of a trip, then maybe we hang on to it for the rest of our lives and replay it over and over and over again. And it becomes something that we call self-defining experience. It is an experience that defined myself, Oh my gosh, what a terrible thing. Why would we carry around such baggage for the rest of our life? Sounds terrible, doesn't it? Why would we do that to ourselves? We don't have to. But oftentimes we just get into that rut. And despite the fact that it's painful, the picking at that scab, is painful. And it keeps bleeding and oozing and pussing all over the place. For whatever reason, we won't stop. It's familiar. It defines us now. It's comforting somehow. And so we just keep at it. But this seeing that I talk about every whenever I can, mostly to remind myself, is not possible as long as that constant obsession with those loops continues. We have to get in there and stop the fantasizing. And then things naturally heal. It's just, as far as I can tell, a law of nature. When you stop inflicting damage, then the damage heals, and then things return to normal. And what normalcy is in this context is what we call enlightened activity. It's just the natural state. There's nothing put on about it. It is not something else that is not here. But this thing that we call practice is to interrupt, perhaps, the loops and the constant self-wounding that we unfortunately often inflict on ourselves. So please find a method, find something that works for yourself, that you are yourself inclined towards or seem to have a karmic affinity with, and commit to it. Give it your best shot. And the very least that can happen, the worst that could happen, is you make a mistake. And if you make a mistake, then hey, you've learned one of your mistakes. What could be better? Okay, I will. We're on the schedule full time now, so I will be back next Sunday at 1:30. As always, if you want to get in touch with the temple, you can write the contact at Daishu-in-West.org, and that will come straight to me. And I'm always available for questions, comments, anybody who wants to talk about these things. Hi, please take care.